Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and let me see if I can get this light a little bit better. Because I kind of put it up here, but then I feel like I'm half in shadow when I do that. It's not a very good place to put it down. Good morning, Alex. And yeah, I'm just trying to get the lighting a little correct here because the sun is still coming up outside, and like I said, in about 10 minutes, it'll be 10-15 minutes, you'll be able to see me perfectly without this light. So I feel like I'm also coming up with the sun somehow. So it is now the good morning, Joanne. This is now the 18th. I couldn't remember what day it was. What day of it's Friday, I guess. Yeah, that's the day of the week that we're all at. I was up a little earlier this morning, although later than I expected I was going to be. I went to bed. I went out to dinner last night for a friend's birthday, and so I had an appointment before that, and then I was out for my friend's birthday. So we had I got home probably a little after 9, and I think I just went straight to bed after that. So and I woke up at about 1. And it was just great. Like out driving yesterday, when I was out driving along, what was it? Route 513 in New Jersey. You could see the moon over the fields, and it was just coming up. And of course, because it's a super moon, it's just massive. It's just huge. And then there was just a little bit of cloud that kind of kept coming over, and I wanted to pull over and take a photo, but I was running late because it was we finished our session, and then I was like, okay, I gotta get in the car and run over and out to the restaurant. But I had a nice time yesterday evening. It's always good to. It wasn't that crowded because it's a Thursday night, so that was nice. The moment I woke up this morning, because you know how it is. Good morning, Pat. I was just talking about my dinner last night, which was very, very nice, and then being able to see this nice full moon that was out last night. And I had today. I have to go tomorrow. Okay, so I was going to mention this because tomorrow I'm going to Lambertville in the evening because I'm teaching a class tomorrow. Actually, I'm teaching intuitive development in person. We're going back to the first class, and right now I have 2 students. I happened to stop by the store yesterday, and Corinna told me that there's a possibility of another person coming in, so I have to make sure I have enough handouts and stuff for tomorrow. So I got to prep that today, and be prepped for the class, the ongoing online class, of which we're at week 9 out of 10. So we're almost done. The Sunday class, we're only going to have one more week, so I'm going to have to come up with the next spate of classes that's just for transition life coaching. I haven't had a dream workshop in a while. I should probably have one of those. But then my Sundays will be more or less free again. I have a client first thing tomorrow morning, I think, around in person at either 10 or 10:30. I have to look. And then when I'm finished with her, then I need to have my lunch and then go down to, up really, to Milford. And then from there, I need to go to Lambertville, which is I live in a county called Hunterdon, right? And Hunterdon is it's massive. Interesting, yeah. It's a massive county. It's from I live at the very, very top of Hunterdon County, on the edge of Warren County. Where this is on the edge of Hunterdon and Mercer County. So, and there's a lot of bridges that are out right now. Corinna was talking about that yesterday. She said, you have to go in Pennsylvania and back to New Jersey and back and forth again to get to places. Now, I used to live in that area, so I do know. I know it fairly well, and I had to try to remember where this is a film festival I'm going to, because Jesse Pollock, I've mentioned him, he's the one who's helped me get Katonia podcast together. He's the one who Jesse was the one who helped me get recommended my initial podcasting equipment. He's the one who was helping me edit some of these episodes that I'm remastering for, that I'm remastering for, gosh, my brain's just not working today. for the Cattonia channel, because I had deleted a whole bunch of them because people were complaining about certain aspects of the sound quality, and I had a Mars and Aries. Well, not my Mars isn't an Aries, but I had a 12th house Mars moment where I was just like, F all of you, then I'm just deleting them all. But I do want to clean them up and put them back on, and some of them I had to take off of strip from video, so that's why Jesse was helping me. In any case, Jesse has completed his not his first film. I think it's like the third film from 1289 Productions, and it's called The Mothman Tapes. It's like a found footage movie about the Mothman legend of West Virginia. And they did go on site to shoot it and everything. So they're premiering it. And now most of these guys, they are former Jersey guys, but they live out of state. Like I know Jesse lives in Ohio, and I forget where some of the other guys. I think there's only one of them who lives in Jersey still. I think lives over in Union County or something. But he's going to be there, and it's like, like I said, I have donated so much money to their projects over the years. Good morning, Suda. That he has said, we should definitely just meet him in person at least one time, right? So I figured that was an opportunity because part of me is like, I don't like driving in Lambertville. I don't like driving at night. I don't want to be trying to come up because Lambertville is a zoo sometimes. Last time I was there was when I was dating somebody, and I guess it's good to have an association other than my dating this person with Lambertville, but there's a place called the Inn at the Hawk there, and I thought, and it's still there. So I was like, that might be a good place to stop for dinner if it's not too jammed with people. But we'll see. It's a Friday night, and this film festival is going on. It's a Halloween film festival. They do seem to have better parking now in Lambertville, which you have to pay for, which is fine by me. I don't care, just as long as I have a place to park and I don't have to try to fight for street spots, which was normally what you have to do. Anyway, yada yada. I'm going on and on about that's what's preoccupying me. I'm like, okay, is this going to be a nightmare going down to Lambertville tomorrow? But my guides assure me it's going to be fine. In fact, the messages I got this morning were kind of like, just have fun, stay in the present, which is kind of what I've been doing. I feel like this has been, there are moments, and I think that's one of the things I was going to talk about this morning was these moments that we have where sounds like it'll be fun. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, and I would be great to meet these guys before... finally, just kind of like, just to be able to, just be able to space to say hi, I don't know about, I don't know what kind of time it's going to be. I know they're going to show the film and then they're going to do a Q&A afterwards. And the film doesn't start till 9:15. The two of us on a road trip would be comical. Yeah. Well, it would be, I'm just very, I don't know. I think that's a very Torian thing. I think, Pat, you and I might have been talking about this the other day. There's like this, that, where we're kind of like, okay, I have to go here. Now, where am I going to park? And what's it going to be like? It's going to be this time of day. And it's going to be that. Like this is what the brain does. It's like it's trying to plan the same way. Yeah. You're Taurus as well. Like we all like to have it all planned. And I'm like, okay, I'm in a new space now where I'm trying not to over plan things. So I'm just going to have to show up and figure it out. But my guides assure me, they're like, no, you'll be able to find parking. It'll probably be paid parking, but my thing is just as long as it's not like a place where if you're parked after the meter time, and Jim and I are like, fuck it. Yeah, it's, Taurians live by the clock. Yeah, well, that's just it. It's, and it's been trying to get off of that has been very, very difficult. Like just being able to kind of be in the moment. And Scorpios are like, well, Scorpios are water. So, yeah. Water signs, and also I've noticed like Aquarius is a sign that can just be kind of like, yeah, what do you want to do? It's fine. Whatever you want to do. They just kind of shrug their shoulders and go, okay. Although honestly, when I'm staying with people, if I'm, like when I've lived abroad and stuff and I've stayed in somebody's house, good morning. When I've gone abroad and stayed in people's houses, that's kind of the way I am. I'm like, it's their house, whatever they want to do, it's fine. Like I don't get the like, no, I have to be this way and do this. I can't be like that in somebody else's, because I know how I am in my own space. I like my space organized. I like it a certain way. When other people come in and go, oh, you should do this and you need to do this and that, I'm just like, this is my house and I have it the way I want it. But if I'm in other people's houses, then I always feel like, no, I can't. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be. Not going to sit there and go. So yeah, yes, it's a struggle. I have argued in my head. Don't work. Just go. But the weather, the people, the parking. Oh yeah. Oh right. I understand what you're saying now. Yeah. There's a yeah. That's what you kind of do. You want to go to an event. It sounds like fun, but then you're like, oh, I'm gonna have to find parking. It's gonna be nice weather. Yeah, exactly. Like that kind of stuff. You start kind of mentally going through all that. But I'm like, no. Regardless, it's not gonna be snowing. It's not gonna be so. Yeah, it's not even gonna be raining. I don't think. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna go down and. It's hard for me because I have a driving issue too, like as I've mentioned to you. So I'm like, okay, this is a little bit of a test here, but hopefully all will go well, and I'll be okay. But yeah, but they've said, and that may be another reason why I'm kind of like this about it, but it should be fine. In fact, the cards I got this morning again were kind of the moment-to-moment cards. Now, I was playing with the Between Worlds deck this morning, and this card came up, which I think is really, really beautiful. This is a card of transformation, if you can check this out. You do a Google Map view. I literally already did that this morning. So, yeah, I mean, I do know the area, but it's changed a bit. So, yeah, this is a, I think this is a really beautiful, like, bird. Then I have to add the wildlife in there. Yeah, it's gorgeous, isn't it? I mean, it's just this bird that's kind of in this process of transformation, and you're seeing these different kinds of wings, and you almost see like this kind of going on down here, like the sinews, that are putting themselves in a different way. The other card that keeps coming up a lot in multiple decks, yeah, wow, is this one, which is about solitude. Okay. And solitude. Remember, we've been getting the Hermit quite a bit in our readings. And solitude seems to be a theme right now. There kind of is this... solitude is just this kind of... It just seems like there's a need to create space in a way. I like that card. Yeah, the cards in this deck are beautiful. This is that Between Worlds deck. I think, Joanne, you and I were talking about this when we were lamenting the post office, and I said this was the deck that, for whatever reason, even though my address was on it, the postal person decided to deliver it to an address that didn't even have a remotely the same name on the other side of town. And she's like, yeah, I looked at it, and because I called the post office because I got this thing saying, oh, it was delivered. It was like a registered mail thing, and she delivered it to some apartment complex on the other side of town. I'm like, why did you bring it there? I'm like, what is the difference between the name of my street and that street? Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going on over there. That really makes sense for me. Solitude. I feel it turning in for myself in a positive way, comforting. Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm finding. I'm liking being in these spaces. And at the same time, I think we have these moments where we have certain anxieties and things that come up. Like yesterday morning, I was telling all of you about how I was a little distracted because I was going downstairs just to get my coffee, figure out what ghost story. Oh, I have a ghost story for today too. And it was, all of a sudden I was getting like a beeping light on my thermostat, like in the living room, like you have to change battery. And I finally figured out how to do that and get it right, but it was screwing up the signal to my furnace for a while, so I had to get that sorted out yesterday. And that stuff always... I had a furnace once where it would just... randomly the gas would shut off in the middle of winter and stuff. So, I have a little bit of a triggery thing with that. So I was like, I don't want to be starting up with this again. But fortunately, I figured it's all sorted out now. But it was like yesterday I had to change the batteries in my torch, in the flashlight. And then I had to change the batteries in... the thermostat, and then I had to change I have a water purifier on my thing. I had to change the filter, and that suddenly went bad. And then I had to change my printer ink. My printer was running out of ink because I was printing up stuff for customs forms and stuff because I'm mailing something to Pat, and it was just like and that ran out of ink. So fortunately, I had just bought new cartridges, so I was like, okay, now I gotta put. It was really weird. Like yesterday, I had to throw everything old away and put everything new away. I'm like, there's got to be a synchronicity in this, right? Where we've got to put all this stuff away and put all the new stuff in. So, yeah. It was very strange. But I felt like when but I don't know, energy's just been really, really high. And I feel like, but it's like also I'll have these moments where this stuff kind of almost comes up. And those of you who have done Rahani will understand this, that it's kind of like when you're doing the healing, you'll have these moments where you're almost in a panic mode about something, or you're really, clenched up about something. And then it's like it just suddenly releases itself, or it just suddenly transforms itself into these kind of moments, and you're able to kind of relax into whatever's going on. And it's different. I mean, it's different from just saying like, oh, okay, I'm practicing breathing exercises or I'm meditating, which, also can be very helpful in these situations. But I think it's just like, there's just something, tense and then it goes, right? When you're working with violet flame, it changes things very quickly. And there's this shift that occurs with the violet flame. And it's weird because it doesn't happen instantaneously. That's what I think we were talking about that the other night. It's while it's going on, you're still sitting there like, I still feel tense, I still feel tense, I still feel this, I still feel that. And then like just all of a sudden, like almost on a delay, it all of a sudden just changes itself. It's a hard thing to describe, but I think it absolutely, yeah. And what is felt there. So so that's what I was kind of experiencing yesterday, because I decided after I got everything all squared away, I was like, okay, I just need to. It was like all this stuff kind of came up, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna go. I actually stopped and did some Rahani on myself, and initially, like I said, when I was done with it, but as the day went on, it was like all of a sudden everything just kind of released and kind of fell into place. So it's just been this is like I said, this is my favorite time of year, but nonetheless, we still can get caught up in a lot of mental stuff, right? We can still get caught up in okay, what's the list for today? What do I have to do? What's going on? Oh my God, I got to get this done. Oh my God, I got to get that done. And what if I do this? What if that happens? Like, we know the kind of ramble that the mind does. And just kind of getting into that space. But I don't know, it's just almost like I can let, just let go of it, if just do what makes sense in the moment, and I don't know, that's just been easier to do. And I have to say, I guess the surprise for me is this month, I've kind of expected with everything we've read about the astrology, that it was going to be an extremely tense and uptight kind of a month where I was just going to be like, like a knotted fist, like all the time. And instead it's been quite the opposite. It's just more like, I just feel like a lot of joy all the time, in spite of the fact that there's a lot of tense things going on. And I think maybe that's where solitude comes in as well, because I think to a certain degree, we have to pull back on ourselves, and we have to pull into a space where we are, where we can just make space around us. In that case, it's a little bit like that Four of Cups card that we have in this deck, where you have this kind of turning in energy. Yeah, this one, where you have the turning in energy, where there's you, okay, and there's the what kind of the water, and then you have all these voices in the background, all these voices just yelling at you. That's great, yeah, and it's same for the most part, yeah. It's and so that's almost what I feel like. It's like, okay, once we get out of the voices, or the voices just kind of fade into the background, you have space to see things. And one of the cards that keeps coming up repeatedly, and I know it's just interesting in light of what we're doing with the school and everything, is creativity again, too. There's this whole thing about people creating. And I was thinking, I'm like, why does this theme continually come up? Because I don't think it's necessarily like saying, everybody quit your job and make art. Like, you know what I mean? It's not that kind of an energy. I feel more like it's like saying we're all... like you're in a new space, right? You're in this, however you want to look at it. If you want to look at it as moving into a new earth space, if you want to look at it as an ascension space, if you want to look at it as just fundamentally, okay, I feel differently with everything going on now than I did before, through all of the Pluto energy going direct and all the things that we revisited over the last few months, or the healing that we've been working through. As we're working through all of that stuff, it's like, okay, we talk, like we saw the void card yesterday. We had the nothingness card, right? And it's almost like, okay, so in void space, that's like a womb space. That's a space for something to be birthed. So I think when the word creativity keeps coming up, it's almost like, okay, we're getting ready to birth something else. Whatever that something else is, whatever that new life is going to look like. But there's almost like this solitude that's kind of required here, because we need to, if you think about it like a butterfly, like, or like you have like the little caterpillar that turns into the butterfly, right? What does it do? It makes a little cocoon around itself, and it kind of gestates in the darkness, and then, it bursts out with its wings, yeah, right? It's that kind of creative process, it's, It's like we're in this one state and then we're moving into this other one. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what our reading brings up today. But that was the theme that really had come up for me. Now, I was going to tell you a little bit of a story today, and I couldn't make up my mind. I had bought this book when I was in England. England, I love it. They have the little penguin editions everywhere. This is M.R. James. I have a couple of favorite stories from him. Puella, you were talking about. Yeah, you sent me that. Joanne sent me a link to something about the girl archetype. And it's interesting because it's very similar to it's basically the same as the puer archetype, probably with a different inflection. But of course now that was always couched in masculine terms, puer and senex, right? It was always couched, old man, young man. And now this is the puella archetype is more young girl. And right, Joanne sent me an article this morning that I'm going to look at it, but yeah, so it's almost like we're moving into that energy and that space, which is different from, it's kind of a renewed, youthful kind of energy, but this time it's more feminine rather than what we think of as masculine. And again, it's not that one's necessarily superior to the other, but it does require a different way of looking at the world and a different way of doing things. So we are not, it's almost like we're going back, but looking at things with the energy of the youthful feminine, as it were, rather than just the young boy kind of energy that we see. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just a really different and different kind of a space. I was starting to talk about this, right? I was like, she mentioned the Puella thing, the childlike wonder. Yes, exactly. And that's literally what my guides keep saying is like, that's the way you want to look at the world. Like I kept got the moment to moment card like 3 times this morning. It was like moment to moment, just be where you are. Don't be getting ahead of yourself in the way that we were talking about at the beginning of this live stream. So, okay. So, yeah, there's a few of these stories that I like. So, again, I can't read this to you because it's too long. But just kind of to sum up a little bit of this story, which I think is really interesting. Because and anybody who might be new on here, I do a ghost story a day for October. Not all days. But it's about somebody who is a man he comes from Cambridge. And he goes to a church in near Toulouse called Saint Bertrand de Comminges, and so he's there. He's somebody who works for the library, and I always think you're going to love the article. Yeah, and actually, I should probably share the link to the article too if other people want to read that too, because Joanne sent it to me over in Messenger, but I will share it over here for everybody. So it's. It says, Cambridge man who had come from Toulouse to see Saint Bertrand's church, so he was going to go in and like I said, he's a library guy, and that's one thing about M.R. James is he always writes about librarians, which those of us who were librarians as a profession, it's kind of the old school librarianship that people don't do so much anymore, but it was, those of us who work in archives really enjoy this kind of librarianship. But this guy was like trying to find rare acquisitions for the Cambridge Library, and this is what a lot of these kind of people who get caught in these stories end up doing. And so he goes to this church, and so he decides he was going to spend a day taking photographs in the church and making notes. So he talks with the verger there, the sacristan, who owns the church, and he says he's kind of this little, very, very nervous kind of a man. And he is, and he has this, and he always looks like he's looking over his shoulder. So when he went in, so he says he's in the church and he's walking, and this kind of little man is behind him, and he keeps looking behind him, and he's starting to get kind of annoyed with this guy a little bit, and he's just thinking like, he's like, he turns to the guy and he's like, you could just leave me in the church, or you could lock me in the church if you need to go. Like maybe he didn't have his breakfast, maybe he didn't have, this. And the man says, oh, no. He's like the thought of leaving him alone in the church like filled him with horror. He was just like, no, you can't be alone in the church. And he's like, he says, no, I've breakfasted, I'm fine, with many thanks to monsieur, it's all fine. And this guy's like, okay, he's like, you asked for it. So he works very late in the day. And as he's working through and he's, cataloging everything in this church and taking pictures, As it's starting to get dark, now he can see that now the sacristan is starting to get impatient. You can tell, like he wants to get out of there. So, and there's one particular thing that he sees. It is it's an image. Let's see. Let me just find it. It was. He found himself right. There was like a. I'm trying to find what it was. There's something that he sees in the church. I think actually, you know what it is? It was an image of Saint Bertrand, and the way that the image was, like, the guy's name is Denistune, who comes into the church, and he kind of looks at it and he's just kind of going to make a joke about it, but instead he thinks it's really weird because this guy, the sacristan's on his knees, like praying, like sweating, like fervently to the image of Saint Bertrand, and he's just like, okay, maybe I won't say anything. Like, the sacristan seems like he's just a little weird, okay? So finally, as they're leaving and they're walking, the sacristan says, Monsieur seems to interest himself in the old books. And, he had kind of mentioned, he's like, well, I was kind of hoping there was a library in town or something. And he says, no, he says, there's no library. He says, but if you are a, was it, how did he put, what's the word that he had put? The French phrase that he had used. It seems like this is like a shortened version of this that they have in here. But it was just basically amateur de vieux livres, like, a lover of old books, right? And so first he says, so Denistune kind of gets his hopes up, and then he thinks like, it's probably going to be some old missal, like, that every library has 1,000 copies of or something. But he's like, well, maybe it's interesting. So he goes along to see what this sacristan has. And he opens up this case, and he takes out this book. And it's like got a very unusual cover. And now and the size of it, he's like, no, it's too big for a missal. It's too big. He's like, this may be interesting. And then when he hands him this book, he says, now it's more than interesting. He opens it up, and what it is a scrapbook, the Canon Alberic scrapbook. He was a canon of that church at one time. And it's page after page. It's like he's ripped them out of illuminated manuscripts, like illuminated manuscripts and ancient, like, writings of gospels that don't exist anymore, including ones that are now, like, considered Gnostic gospels and things. Page after page. And he is just, like, fascinated. He is like, oh my God, because this book he knows is worth, like, a fortune. And he's thinking, there's no way I'm leaving without this book. And so, the man's watching him, and the man's daughter is there, and she's kind of sitting there. They both look very, very nervous, but he's reading this book, and he's kind of looking one page after the other. And then finally the sacristan says, if Monsieur will turn on to the end. And he opens up, and he goes to this last page, and he sees this image. It was, let me see if I can find the description of this. So he says, he turns on to the end. Now, it looks like Canon Alberic was doing some kind of divination, because there's this writing in Latin, responsa 12 December 1694, interrogatum est, inveniame responsum est in Venus. Like, he's doing some kind of divination or oracle, okay? And then he said, there's this drawing. He said it's no longer in existence, but he possesses a photo. It was a sepia drawing from the end of the 17th century, which was probably thought appropriate to Bible illustrations. On the right was a king on the throne, King Solomon in this case. And the throne elevated on 12 steps, a canopy overhead, lions on either side. He's bending forward with an outstretched scepter in an attitude of command. His face expressed horror and disgust, yet there was the mark of imperious will and confident power. As Lon Milo Duquette said, somebody who is a Solomon, who can manage the demonic very with power. The left half of the picture was the strangest, the interest plainly centered there. On the pavement before the throne were grouped 4 soldiers surrounding a crouching figure which must be described in a moment. A 5th soldier lay dead on the pavement, his neck distorted and eyeballs starting from his head. The 4 surrounding guards were looking at the king. The sentiment of horror was intensified. They seemed, in fact, only restrained from flight by their trust in their master. All this was plainly excited by the being that crouched in their midst. I entirely despair of conveying by any words the impression this figure makes upon anyone who looks at it. I recollect once showing the photograph to a lecturer of morphology, a person of, I'm going to say, abnormally sane and unimaginative habits of mind. He refused to be alone for the rest of the evening. Oh, and there's deer now in my front yard. He told me afterwards he had not dared put out his light before going to sleep. He says the figures described as having a mass of coarse, matted black hair, and it was seen it was covering a body of fearful thinness, almost a skeleton with the muscles standing out like wires. The hands were a dusky pallor, covered, like the body, with long coarse hair and hideously taloned. The eyes were touched with a burning yellow, had black pupils, were fixed upon the throne of the king with a look of beast-like hate. It says, imagine one of the awful bird-catching spiders of South America translated into human form, and you will have some faint conception of the terror inspired by this appalling effigy. Okay, so you have a description of this picture. And so anyway, at the end of this, he asks the young man, the Dennis soon asks the sacristan, he says, is this book for sale? And he says, if monsieur pleases. And he said, well, how much do you want for it? And he says, I will take 100 francs and no more. Now, 100 francs was not a whole lot of money, and he was like confounded. He's like, my dear sir, he's like, this book is worth way more than 100 francs. But the man said, I will take 100 francs and no more. So he pays the money, deal's made, they drink some really terrible wine. And he said the sacristan seemed like a new man. He was just like, oh, he was like all like, even joked around a bit. Oh, shall I walk monsieur back to his hotel? He says, oh, no, now. He says, well, stay to the middle of the road. The sides are rough. And if you need me, just call. So he's thinking, okay, whatever. He just wants to get away now and look at his book back in his room. And apparently he goes and tells the woman who runs the hotel that he's bought a book from him. And now this woman's interested in Deniston, kind of like. There's all these people kind of watching him now that he has this book. So he goes into, and also the daughter of the sacristan hands him a crucifix and puts him around his neck. She says, and he asks, well, how much do you want for it? She's like, because he doesn't really want it. And she's just like, oh, no, monsieur is more than welcome to it. And so he's, of course, well, what can you say? It's just it's a gift of, so somehow he says he felt like he did something so great that they couldn't repay them. And they were trying to find a way to show their gratitude. Well, so he takes the book back, and he's sitting there, and as he's getting ready, he has the cross around his neck. It's a very heavy one, so he takes it off and he puts it on the thing. And then as he's sitting there, all of a sudden, he becomes aware of a hand coming up behind his chair. And when he looks at the hand and the sinews on it, and the way that it is exactly like the hand of the thing in the picture at the end of the book. And when he turns around, this thing is crouched in the corner, ready to spring at him. And he screams. I mean, he reaches for the crucifix, like, immediately, and he screams. And immediately, all these men come rushing into the room. They open the door, like, people work at there when they hear this. And but the thing is gone now. And so what he's discovering is that this particular thing, something that probably was invoked by Canon Alberich's like occult leanings or what he's done, and then there's all of these prayers to Saint Bertrand to save me from the things of the night, and the thing is, once the sacristan had acquired this book, this thing started to follow him around, and he was that's why he was like this, like had this almost the way that Deniston described it, like he was like had a monomania, but he didn't know what it was, and then. So what Deniston ends up doing is he photographs this last page, and then they take it out and they burn it. They cut it out of the book to somehow break the spell of whatever this thing is. But like literally it changes him. Like he's never the same man after that. And then there's several stories after that that follow from this. But the book does end up back in the Cambridge Library, of course, which was M.R. James definitely had strong connections to Cambridge and to Eton and to things like that. So the book does come back, minus that picture of which a photograph exists, but the original, of course, they set fire to because it's apparently so heavily cursed. So anyway, that's the Canon Alberich scrapbook. That's the totally abridged version. You can actually listen to his stories. Like if you go on YouTube, you can hear audiobook versions of these, which are really good. There's some places that do really good vocal tellings of these. So, that was a great story. Yeah, it was I love James. I love his stuff. Even though he's like, Mr. Eaton schoolmaster, so he just sounds like he's some real, I don't know, posh, whatever. I do. His storytelling is just masterful. I remember being at Oxford, and I was at a conference, and the young man who was an undergraduate who was doing all the tech work. He was setting up the projectors and the computers and stuff. And we mentioned. We were kind of sitting around afterwards. I mentioned I was into M.R. James, and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm reading my his bachelor's thesis or whatever on M.R. James." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So definitely a big thing in England, but we don't hear as much. I always felt that there should be an M.R. James tour of like East. Ooh, I'd love to see Oxford. Oh, I've been there many times. In fact, I was there in December. I went and stayed in this woman's house, to a little Victorian house, where I was doing my writing there. And yeah, Oxford's a nice little city. It's a nice place. And if you like to see all the old buildings and stuff, and it is really an interesting Inspector Morse. Yeah. If you like the TV shows, if you like seeing the Bodleian Library is always worth it. The Radcliffe Camera is beautiful. They have all the buildings with the carvings and the heads and the gargoyles. It's just M.R. James. Yes, Montague Rhodes James. I love the architecture. Yes, Alex, that's exactly right. Yeah, the architecture there is beautiful. I've been there enough times that probably if I went back, I don't know that I'd spend more than a day there. Had never heard of him, but you want to look him up more. Yeah, here's the cover so you can see the name on here. Now this is actually a mini version. I have multiple versions, including first editions of James, because I'm a huge collector of his stuff. But his stories are really interesting. Like it's very Victorian in style, but he tells really good stories. Yes, you too. Yeah, he's a really good writer, and he doesn't always have traditional ghosts. He always has like guardians and monsters. It's just interesting. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, and it's and he's got some very famous ones that they've actually made like BBC TV shows out of as well. And then there's a whole series, Ghost Stories for Christmas, that had Christopher Lee. Okay, and Christopher Lee was playing M.R. James reading these stories, and it's something again. And you can find that Ghost Stories for Christmas. You can find that also if you look that up with Christopher Lee. You can find those on YouTube as well. And so you can have Christopher Lee narrating these stories instead of me. So anyway, so that's your story for the day. Now I'm going to do our reading for today. I have a couple of quick things. So let's see. So what do we need to know for today? What does everybody on Livestream need to know today? I think I remember. When you say that, Pat, do you think you remember these stories? Ooh, crush on Christopher Lee. Well, he wasn't. You might like this then. For sure. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this. I just did this reading, and I was just talking about solitude and aloneness, and guess what our card that comes up again? The show. Oh, you think you remember the show. Got it. Okay. It's quite possible. Yeah, I don't know if they might have shown it in Canada, because there's definitely, because it's not something that we necessarily would have, I know it wouldn't have been on TV here, but if you have any access to BBC programming of any kind, then you might have seen that. So, okay, so our central theme here, clinging to the past. Yeah, the idea of we are clearing out the past. I think a lot of what's going on right now, as people are going through and having kind of these moments of newness and then these moments of old challenges, it's kind of like the past is clearing itself out. It's time to walk away from the spilled cups and look to the ones that are still standing. But this is the way in which we get tied up in our heads with things, and are not just in terms of past memories, but also past patterns and past ways of thinking. I have BritBox and PBS Masterpiece. Oh, cool. Yeah. I think BritBox is one of the only ones that my sister has now. I don't have it myself because I just don't have enough time to watch TV shows. But I know that's those are really good channels. So clinging to the past is a thing that we're doing. Our inner feeling of which we're unaware, going with the flow, okay? We see this going with the flow, but remember, this is the ace of water. So this is an ace, this is a beginning. We're at a new beginning, and as you can see, this is water energy. We were all talking before about about the earth signs, and remember, we're moving out of Capricorn, which is an earth sign. And there's a way of doing things that, like I said, there's good things about earth. There's about being grounded and practical and sensible and, and there is something about if you're an earth element, there's a certain thing about it that can be very cozy and very familiar and all this kind of stuff. But I think a lot of times too, when that earth element gets tied up too much in the mind, that's when, literally what I was just saying, like we want to do something exciting, but we're like, oh, but what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Like there's all that need to plan and to know the outcome of everything. That's very earth, in more of a sense that's not as helpful, shall we say. So this is more about a new beginning. That's more about what's felt rather than this tangle that we get into with the mind. Yeah, and the external feeling of which we're aware. There's an ending here. The energy is so different right now, is what Suda's saying. Yes, that is, it completely is. I feel, I don't know, like I said, autumn comes every year. I love autumn every year, but I'm experiencing it differently this year. It's literally like, I just feel like whatever I'm doing, it's like I'm just in this space and I'm just loving every piece of just even being out and doing what I'm doing. And I don't know that I've changed. Yeah, there's something, well, maybe you have. If you have, it's not something that's fully been conscious. Sometimes it's more what we feel in the body. I feel like we jumped the timeline. Yes, and actually I think we did. I feel like sometime even in July or August that there was some kind of a jump. And yeah, so something has ended. Okay, so we're seeing the internal beginning, which we're not fully aware of yet. We are aware of the ending. Okay, we're aware of moving into this new space. Okay. And yeah, there's the Solitude card again. This kind of being a light unto yourself, but this is also just about taking time to integrate the new. I feel like this has a lot to do with, feeling like because our life experience is going to be made up of things that are pleasurable and things that are not. And so the question is like, taking all of that energy and making it work together. Because one thing I think I've said, we often don't think about the fact that our wounds actually are just as important as our happy and pleasant experiences. Everything teaches us something. But the question is, if we if we have a wound that when it heals, that it's kind of like makes us afraid maybe to try experience something again. Sometimes it's a case of, well, if you don't succeed, try again another time. It's like it could be just suggesting that there's either a need to change a way of doing something or not to let a past fear get in the way of the present. Okay. And our outcome card is Six of Wands. This is the success card, riding the tiger. Okay. So yeah, this is moving into a period of success, moving into a period of recognition. This is very strong fire energy. And certainly we are going to be moving into a space in this next year where everything, like Neptune's moving into Aries, Saturn's moving into Aries. Yeah, we are spot on. Yeah, we're moving into that where fire is going to dominate more, and that's going to make us move to action, but not necessarily action in the sense of violence and hatred. And now that song's stuck in my head. Okay, we're moving into this kind of new space that we're having here. So yeah, I pulled a few other things for today, and I know we're just about getting to the end of the time for this live stream, but let's do. I have the gateway cards today. I felt like bringing those out. Ride the tiger. Oh, okay, got it. And that's literally what it says in the description of the card too. Riding the tiger. Okay, yeah, and look at this. Stepping into stillness. Okay. Stillness seems to be the theme of today. Stillness and solitude. My power is born in the majesty of silence. And actually, I got the silence card too, which because when I did a reading just saying what's the theme of today, not only did I get solitude, I got silence. And in this deck, it's, because it's just in that silent space. Actually, what's coming into my mind right now is if you think about the word Om, which we often recite, they say it's got 4 parts, the ooh, it's like got a 3-part syllable, and then there's a 4th part, which is the silence at the end of it. It's like you kind of do that. You took a joyride to see the comet yesterday, and it was glorious. Oh, cool, you actually got to see it yesterday. And you saw it, and you went to probably around sundown, you actually got to go see it. Because it's really, the sky is just really amazing right now. Let me tell you what this stepping into stillness card means. The universe wants you to know deep within you is an inner sanctuary. Having Having this inner peace, however, doesn't mean there isn't chaos and disharmony around you. It means that no matter what is occurring in your life, you can observe it from a place of stillness. Oh boy, that's been my guru's message to me forever. Surrender to the sweet energy of quietude. Avoid the temptation to embrace the drama and urgency of life. Affirm that you have all the time that you need. Power is born in stillness, and your potential is dramatically expanded in the majesty of silence. I'm going to check the pics. Suda's just saying she had posted pics. I got to see that. I mean, really, this card sums up exactly what I've been trying to say today. You know, that there's going to still be chaos and stuff going around outside of you that you need to integrate. But you are, if you come from it from that centered place, then it's interesting. When you have an experience like that, where you're able to see that boom chakalaka here, when you have that experience, it's like, it looks different to you. Like, it's just kind of like, oh God, I got to get up. I got to do this. I got to do that. You kind of almost look at it like, wow, this is going on. This exists. This happens. It's almost like something that it's kind of like it's almost like a work of art that unfolds in front of you, sometimes chaotic, sometimes, sometimes beautiful, but whatever it is, it's like, I don't know, when you operate from a place of stillness, if you can find the still point, everything kind of looks like it's circling around you, but there's not a necessity to feel a particular way about it. It's more just the wonder about the fact that it goes on at all, That's true, exactly, yeah. Stillness, and I'm in it, feels good, honestly. Yeah, it does feel good to be in that space, and I feel like that's kind of what's changing. We all have the long list of things we have to do, but somehow it's just kind of like, you know what? I don't need to fret about this. I just need to take it one step at a time. I'm just going to show up and see what happens. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Is it seeing beauty in the everyday? That's part of it. Because when you're in the space of stillness, it's like, if I talk about my own experiences of stillness, like real profound stillness, I feel like it's a space where I don't really have words for it. It's just, you're just there and it's there and that it is. And I don't even necessarily know that I felt happy or sad about any of it. But it's like everything is a wonder. Even things that are horrifying are somehow a wonder. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to put it into words. But it's not about split thinking. It's not about judgment. It's just about kind of letting everything be what it is and maybe being able to see it for the first time. But without trying to, I don't know. It's about being able to see it without having to judge it or analyze it, or is it good or bad, or does it fit into what I'm doing, or is it this or is it that? It's just kind of letting everything be there. And yeah, and then there can be a sense of wonder to it too. Like I said, like when I've been driving around, I'm just like, oh my God, it's just like I said, driving last night. That's so hard for someone who sees both sides all the time. Well, it is. And honestly, that is, and it's weird because the first reading I did before I even came on today, had it ended with the split card, because that's just the way that we've been conditioned to think. And this is trying to teach us a new way to do it. And that's where we're creating something new, is to not do it that way. But we don't know. The thing is, and that's the other thing that I had gotten in this deck was, you don't want to approach it from, it's hard, you can't approach it from the mind, you have to approach it from the body, if that makes any sense. You're approaching it from the body rather than the mind. The article, Synchronicities. I'm going to take a look at that article, and then I will post a link to it today for everybody. But, it's very, we tend to, we've been conditioned to do things that way. As we encounter something, we have to make a judgment about it for ourselves and maybe even more broadly. And it's like, okay, we make decisions all the time, right? But it's saying you have to make the decisions from a different place. Don't make it from the place necessarily of, I judge it to be this or this. It's just kind of like, okay, just let it be what it is. And sometimes when we do that, we discover a little bit more about it. But it's hard to put that into words. Yeah, I'm just like, how important is it? Well, yeah, exactly. Well, it's about not attaching too much importance to certain things, but I think it's also about just not, I don't know, just kind of allowing yourself to be where you are without your mind having to worry about what your next move is. It's not a chess game all the time, where I have to sit there and contemplate. It's more like I can just kind of take that, okay, hear you. She's saying, yeah, it's just kind of letting things, but as things come up, we might, I think we have to allow ourselves to feel those things too. When things are traumatic for us or they're problematic, being present in the moment. Yeah. And again, and even to say it, when we say it kind of in those ways, when we talk about being present, when we talk about different things, because that was also the cards I kept getting earlier. And I'm like, okay, but when you say to somebody, like we can see 1,000 things that say, well, be present, and we're like, yeah, great. Like, what does that mean, right? It's got to be felt. Like, being present is something, like, stillness is about being in the present. It's about feeling exactly where you are in the bigger picture and not having any judgment about it, I guess. It's kind of like you're just experiencing it. And when you're experiencing it from a space of stillness, it's a very profoundly beautiful feeling. So it's hard to just be happy. It kills me. Yeah, right. Exactly. But again, if people are in certain states of mind, to tell them that it doesn't mean anything. But it also tells you that what we're talking about is something where words just aren't adequate. Words just sound like they're token, right? Like, think positive, it just sounds like it doesn't mean anything. So it's something more that's felt. It's something more that's experienced, and me trying to explain it to you, I'm not doing any better of a job than anybody else, but it's something that's experienced in the body. It's like experiencing what it means to live in the present in the body. Joanne says, when I'm with people, I savor more road trip or restaurant, great meal. Yeah, well, exactly. And again, it goes back to Alma's story that I had told in August, where she was talking about the man eating ice cream, his favorite ice cream, and then he gets to the end of it and realizes he's never tasted one drop of it because his mind's going through all the things that he has to do and what happened yesterday and this and that, and so he never really is there. So it's about just being here, so yeah. Anyway, we're at 7:52. I'm going to have to end it for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm glad you enjoyed the story today. And I'm interesting stuff to think about, and interesting to hear that everybody, but not just me, but that everybody is feeling this kind of sense of, yeah, things feel different right now. So we'll see what's developing. I hope you all have a great Friday. Oh, you're welcome. Enjoy your Friday, and I am going to, and you too. Oh, and I'm probably, you're welcome. And I'm going to probably not live stream on Sunday morning because I'm going to be getting back probably after midnight on Saturday. So I'm not going to want to get up and do one on Sunday morning. So so I will do one tomorrow morning, and I'll remind everybody about that then. Everybody have and divas, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.